Alright, this is the second video and I'm starting on the second page of the worksheet where we are working with direct variation equations. So, for those of you that have talked to, and for those of you who are here during the lesson, we always start with the same equation, y equals kx. This is the general equation when we talk about direct variation. After we write down this equation, we're going to use these two numbers that it gives us. These are our initial conditions. So when y is negative 8, we don't know k, and x is negative 2, we can use this information to solve for k. Now once we have our k, we can plug it into our original equation. So once I have this information, I plug it in here, and it creates an equation with only two variables. We don't like an equation that has three variables. We want one with just two, that is y equals the new form we have, that k x. That is in our general equation. Once we have that, we're going to use this new information, the second y. We've already used y equals negative 8 once and x equals negative 2 once. We don't need those anymore. We only use them to find k. Now we're going to plug in 32 for our y, and we're going to solve for our x. I'm going to do that over here. 32 equals 4x. We can solve, and we get x over 8. We did this by dividing both sides by 4 to get that 4 away, and that's our final answer. X equals 8. So we do the first part of this process in order to get a nicer equation, one with only y and x involved. Then we used more information to get our final answer or our solution. This one's very similar, so I'm going to jump down to number 3 and do another one. We again start out with our direct variation equation, which is y equals kx. We then plug in the initial conditions of 12 equals k when x is 18. From here we solve, we get k equals 12 over 18, or 2 over 3. Once we do this, again we take it back up into that original equation, and we do y equals 2/3 x, because we replaced the k with 2/3. Now we have y equals negative 16, so we're going to plug that in. Negative 16 equals 2/3 x. How do we get rid of multiplication by a fraction? I'm actually going to write this one out so that we can see it. It's easier when it's all on one level. Negative 16 equals, that is an equals, not a negative, equals 2/3 x. We multiply by the reciprocal. That means we take this, we flip it on its head, and we multiply by 3 over 2. But again, it's a balance beam, so whatever we do to one side, we must also do to the other. 3 over 2. We are now multiplying this. When we did it on this side, it canceled out the 2/3, so we only have x left on our right side. On our left side, we have negative 16 times 3/2. It's the same thing as multiplying by negative 16 over 1. So on top, we get 3 times negative 16, which is negative 48, divided by 2. And your final answer is going to be x equals negative 24. So for the quiz tomorrow, you're really going to need to know y equals kx and how to solve for k. Beyond that, there's not much new. Down here when we're graphing equations, I gave two methods. The first one is plugging in points. When I plug in negative 1 for x, I get negative 1 times 3. So the output for y is going to be negative 3. When I plug in 0 for x, I get 3 times 0 is 0. When I plug in 1, I get 3. Once I have plugged in 3 values to my x and gotten out 3 y's, I can plot them on my graph. I can go -1 for my x, -3 for my y. I can go 0, 0, and then I can go over 1 up 3. Once I have that, this is the easy part, I just connect those dots right through. The other way that I showed some of you was because there's no number behind any of these x's, we can start at 0, 0 and just plot our slope. Our slope is this number in front of x. It's going to be -3 over 4. So if I start at 0, I can go down 3 and over 4 in the positive direction. Then I can just extend this line out, and I've done the same exact thing. So there's really 2 methods here. There's either plot points and connect, or start at 0, 0 and do your slope. For our final ones, you needed to actually write the equation. So the total cost C is 3.2 times the number of gallons G. If you remember, a few units ago we talked about what words mean in math. If you remember, the is means equals. And then we have 3.20 times the number of gallons G. You get C equals 3.2 G. Over here, the number of delivered toys T is twice the number of crates C. Once you have these, it's exactly like 4, 5, and 6. It's just plugging in numbers and graphing them on your line graph. Just because there's different variables doesn't change anything. Your gallons is your X, your cost is your Y, your toys are your Y, your crates is your X. They're the same thing with different letters. I hope these videos have been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or come in before school tomorrow to get extra help.